So on the screen here, I've got a design for a simple maze game that consists of two components. There's a manufactured timber base and then a laser cut acrylic top. And the idea of this design is you just have a small steel bearing inside that follows the maze pattern, and then in each corner the holes within the base, the larger ones, would have a threaded insert tapped into them, and then the acrylic would be fixed using M4 socket head machine screws, probably in some sort of stainless steel or a black coated finish. So if I want to carry out a milling process on the base, the first thing I'll need to do is hide body 2, because we just want to focus on body 1. And then I need to change my workspace to manufacture. And all I'm going to do in this video is talk you through how you actually set up the workspace within the manufacture area in Fusion 360 before we add any processes on, because there's a few things that we need to set right in order for the design within the software to translate correctly to the processing software that drives your CNC machine, whether that be a 3D printer, laser cutter, or CNC router or CNC milling machine. So first thing we do is click Setup, and you'll notice a couple of things have happened now. So the first thing is a box that's slightly larger, a ghost box that's slightly larger than the actual model we got on the screen has appeared, and we can turn the view cube to get a better view of that. And then also the Z, X and Y axis have appeared on the screen. Now the Z axis you don't want facing in that direction, because the cutting tool on your CNC router is going to be moving in a vertical plane, so that is going to be coming down and cutting these pockets out. So we need to change this, and we also want to change this stock material size that's preset. So first thing I'm going to do is click on stock, and the model is the mode at the moment is set relative size box, okay, but we don't want any additional stock. Okay, so because quite often we're using pre-processed material, so manufactured boards or extruded high density foams, things that materials that we're putting in that don't require any post-processing. So we don't need to set an operation to machine the surface flat at the onset of the manufacturing. That's already done for us. So we then go back to setup, and all we want to do is change the orientation. And if you're ever unsure, if you just hover over the feature, it will give you it's really good at giving you a brief explanation of what that means. And you can see in the diagram there, the cutting tool there is in the orientation of the Z axis. So what I'm going to do is set the X and Y axis positions. So first the X axis I'm going to place here, and then the Y axis I'm going to select this edge here, and I need to flip the Y axis. So you can see that that's now changed it, so that if the blue arrow there, the Z axis, was to be the cutting tool, it's now in the correct orientation. But we wouldn't want to start, it'd be very difficult to get an exact, so if we put an exact piece of stock into the CNC machine, it'd be very difficult to get the exact center lined up with the very center of the tool, especially if it was a ball nose tool that had a round on the end. So what I'm going to do is set the stock box point, and I'm going to set that to this bottom left corner over here. Now the reason I've done the bottom left is because just from a best practice point of view, really, if you imagine this, if you look at this plan elevation here of the component, the Z axis and the Y axis parts of the machine will start over here on the machine, and then when you go, once you put your stock material into the machine, that can then move over. So if you imagine the cursor is the cutting tool, you would then line that up. Good practice, line it up with the bottom left, because that's the easiest part to reach and measure and check you've got it in the right position. And from there you can then start your cutting operation, and when it finishes it will return to the home position. So once you've got that set, now obviously if you put a piece of rough material in, you'd need to change the stock setup, but for pre-finished or pre-machined material, it's perfectly fine to have no additional stock. And you don't need to have that excess coming off the sides, because in the operations I'll show you in a future video, you'll see that you can make assumptions of the stock size you put in. So you can assume you put in a piece of material that is actually bigger than the design we've got on the screen there. So once that's all set like this, the post-processing comes later on, when we've actually added some different operations. So if I click OK on there, that's now set. I'm just going to remove that first setup. That's one I started earlier but didn't complete. So if we just go back into that and click Edit, we can then change any of that at any point during our setup.